Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of TV is Our Real Mom. I'm Dave.
I'm Catie.
And today's episode is us discussing episode 4 of season 6 of The Walking Dead, entitled Here's Not Here. And what does the title refer to, Catie?
I don't think I'm going to be much help on this one because I was pretty confused through the whole episode. And even once it was said, I still don't quite get it. So maybe you can enlighten the viewers this week.
Okay, I might, I sometimes have a tough time getting my philosophical thoughts out of my mouth, out from my brain, out my mouth. But I feel like I kind of get what's going on here. First of all, Here's Not Here is something that Morgan is writing on the trees, so there's that. But Here's Not Here refers to being stuck in that horrible, traumatic moment in your mind, and you can't seem to forget it or get out of it or move past it.
Like the doors that were being discussed?
Yes, the doors that Eastman was referring to. I feel like that's what Here's Not Here means. It means he's not really present in the moment. He's not living this current life. He's stuck in a traumatic moment, which is, I think, something people with post-traumatic stress disorder have to deal with on a regular basis, and that's their struggle. And Eastman, uses the metaphor of being stuck in a room, and you open a door, and you walk out the door, and then it's like a loop. You're stuck back in the same room in that same thing. So Here's Not Here, I think that's what it refers to.
Oh, that was enlightening. So, I'm always confused with those philosophical kind of trippy quotes and things, so that makes a lot of sense.
That's my wheelhouse, Catie. That's what I'm here for.
Awesome. I'm glad this episode was probably right up your alley then.
Yeah, I actually really liked it. I enjoyed it. As for like a slower episode, more character driven. Normally I like a lot of action, but I liked this episode.
Well,
what did you think?
After the nonstop action and the sadness and the violence of last week, I thought it was kind of nice to have this relaxing. I mean, at times I felt kind of slow, like, God, Morgan, just speak, But I really did feel that it was a needed break. And despite this whole episode, it was 90 minutes. One character we kind of know, but don't really know, and another character we've never met before, and yet they held the whole 90 minutes. It held your attention very well, and I was, sad by the end of it, but also happy for Morgan. So I thought it was a really, really well done episode, and I liked it. It was a nice juxtaposition with last week's chaos, so I liked it.
Yeah, I honestly never got bored during the episode. It was it was solid all the way through. So
good performances, very good performances.
Definitely. So what was your favorite part of the episode?
My favorite part of the episode was Eastman's monologue when he was talking about the serial killer that he had to review whether or not he should be paroled. His name was Crichton Dallas Wilton, I believe was his name.
That is correct.
All serial killers, all the best serial killers have 3 names, so they got that part right. But anyway, I thought not only was the story, horrifying, and you could, the longer he told the story, you knew something horrible was coming at the end of it. But the way the actor delivered it, and I believe his name is John Carroll Lynch, it felt so natural. Like so many times you have actors that get very actory in those kinds of scenes, and they can overdo it and oversell the emotion of that. But I felt like this guy playing Eastman, like I totally believed he was just some guy telling this story about his life. And by the end of when he told the culmination of that story, how the murderer broke out and killed his entire family, that was just as shocking to me as if that had happened on the screen to some character that I cared about. So I thought that was without question my favorite part of the episode.
Yeah, Eastman, John Carroll Lynch did an excellent job. I really liked the character of Eastman. Yeah, I really liked him. thought he did an awesome job.
Yeah, it just felt real to me. A lot of, even on Walking Dead, some of the actors, while they're all good, I feel like they can overdo it. And I feel like people might disagree with me, and feel free out there to disagree with me, but I felt like Shane, the actor who played Shane, was always guilty of overdoing it. And so it's really nice to see someone just be supernatural and yet just as effective.
Supernatural.
Yeah, no, that's not what I meant.
Not supernatural, but very natural.
He was very natural, okay. And when you're that natural, it's more effective because you believe someone's just telling the story and you buy it completely, and all the more shocking because of it. So it's one of the better performances I've seen on the show in a long time. So.
Most definitely. Yeah, I like how Eastman sort of teaches Morgan a new way of living, a new philosophy, kind of based around rituals and slow chipping away, of that kind of day-to-day living, natural living. He's like a vegetarian or something. Isn't that what he said?
He's a vegetarian, and he's a pacifist to the point that he buries all of the walkers even and gives them graves. Even, most of our band of heroes that we follow on a weekly basis doesn't do that. So I like it just because it shows an alternative way of dealing with the apocalypse that no one that we've seen on the show so far has chosen to live that way. And I guess it just reminds you that it's a choice how you deal with it.
Yeah, it's a very bold decision in the apocalypse to decide to live like that, to be such an extreme pacifist. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think he said he would have gone vegan, but something about the cheese, or what did he say again? It was like he ate some.
He was just trying to make goat cheese throughout the whole episode, but he couldn't do it. Goat cheese is not that. I mean, it's an acquired taste anyway. So if you're making your own, I imagine it tastes pretty bad if you don't know what you're doing. So.
Yeah.
But when you eat cheese, you're not a vegan because that comes from an animal. So he's not vegan. He's a vegetarian. He's not a vegan.
I think that's what he was saying, is he couldn't give up the cheese, or I think he said the chocolate too. He couldn't give up the chocolate, so.
That makes sense.
So he couldn't be a vegan. But yeah, Tabitha was a fun little character.
Yeah, she was sweet. It's amazing how she's the third character in this whole episode, and you end up caring about her by the end of it. It's so silly, but that just shows how good of an episode it was, and how well they told the story they were trying to get across, is that you can choose to live this way, believing all life is precious. And it's such a opposite end of the spectrum, especially what we've seen this season with the wolves. So it's all a choice. I think that's what they were trying to say.
Yeah. Speaking of the wolves, maybe we should talk a little bit about the ending, or the kind of wraparound story that was the beginning and the end. He's basically telling his story to the wolf. Mm-hmm. Why do you think he's telling the story to the wolf? Is that because he thinks that maybe he can do for the wolf what Eastman did for him, or is that why do you think he's telling his story to the wolf?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think we said at the end of the second episode that we were certain Morgan had killed that wolf, so it was a surprise to see that he didn't, that he left him alive just to sit him down and tell him a story.
Well, I was on the fence about it because the sound it made, it wasn't like a murderous sound, it was like a whack,
Okay.
So well, I think you had convinced me, though, as you always do. You always convince me of stuff. So
I thought he was dead for sure, but I was wrong. So I think he was
first time for everything.
No, there will be many, many times. But I think he was telling him the story just to try to be the Eastman to him. And like we saw that in the JSS episode where Morgan said, "You don't have to live like this." But to me, the wolves, when Eastman was describing the serial killer, Crichton, Dallas, Wilton, whatever, I feel like, to me, that's what the wolves are going to be. Like, that they're going to represent the worst of humanity, and yet Morgan is going to have a choice on whether he can still believe that all life is precious and even try to save these people, which is like a whole band of Crichton Dallas Wiltons, or he can become more like Carol and Rick and everybody and just, but that leads him, that's a slow march back towards where he was, and he doesn't want to get caught in that loop again. So
yeah, if he listens to what Eastman told him, though, Eastman said that, killing Crichton Dallas Wilton and watching him starve to death didn't help at all.
No, it made him worse. It drove him to be the way that Morgan was before he found Eastman.
Yeah.
First of all, I didn't know it took 47 days to starve to death.
Yeah, that's a long
time. So it's no wonder that Eastman had this psycho in his cage just dying who murdered his family. I mean, it's no wonder Eastman was pushed to the brink of sanity, and that, I mean, he was able to find his way back with his, first of all, it's nice to have a little idyllic cabin to get you in that frame of mind. Not everybody has that. But yeah, I can't believe 47 days. That would definitely send a person a little bit crazy, I think.
Yeah. I'm not sure they did their research on the science of that, because unless he was like giving him water or something like that, because I think you would die of thirst before it. I guess he was nice enough to give him water, but he wasn't giving him any food,
But why would you? Why would you? I don't
Why would you even give him water? Yeah, I don't understand.
Why would you want him in your house?
I guess he
I'm
just
sure
wanted to drag out the death slowly so he could, get the most out of it. Get a lot of mileage out of that torture.
Oh, God. Just sounds terrible, but yeah, you can see why he would have been driven to the brink by that long, drawn-out episode, and why he had to find his way back.
Indeed. So, what Morgan learns from Eastman is The Art of Peace, which is a book, supposedly, by...
It's a book. It's a legit book.
By Manahi Ueshiba?
I don't think you pronounced that right.
No. I think Morihei Ueshiba.
That sounds better.
Morihei Ueshiba. I don't know how to say it, but he wrote The Art of Peace, and it is basically a method of sort of deflecting attacks. That's Aikido, I guess. Aikido is the
form of martial arts.
Yeah, it's the form of martial arts that is featured in this book. And yeah, it's a way of life of not killing, basically.
By using your opponent's momentum against them. And that's the art that they were both practicing. Because before, Morgan had a stick, but he was just using it to kill and do damage and stab dudes in the throat. Mm-hmm. But then Eastman taught him Aikido and how to use the staff more purposefully. And that's one thing you noticed at the season finale of last season and the beginning of this season, how graceful he is with it and how much of a change that is from where he was in season 3. And so now we know that's because of Aikido, which looks really cool, by the way.
Yeah. Eastman takes Morgan's killing stick and he says, I fixed your spear. And basically he just took the sharp end off of it and he says, I fixed it, which means I made it so that you can use it to deflect attacks rather than kill people. And so that is the new way for Morgan, and that's we can finally see where he learned all this cool stuff that he's been doing.
Yeah, I liked that Eastman. I mean, from the beginning of the episode when he meets Eastman, you never see Eastman waver in his conviction of that this is the right way to live. Obviously, he went through what he went through before we ever met him with the murderer and all that. But he never wavered from the time we meet him until the end. Even at the end, when unfortunately he gets bit by a walker, as they always do, he still continues his way of life. He brings the walker that bit him back to his home and tries to dig the grave and bury him and just continues life the peaceful way he's been living until it's time to go. And he's like, yeah, I have a gun in here. And I was really happy that they didn't show him die, because I didn't think, you know, for some reason I feel like he was above that. We didn't need to see that. We knew it was going to happen. So it was really nice to just, in a way, it was peaceful because he chose to do it because he knew it was coming anyway, but we didn't have to see it because we see enough of it. So, you know, it was nice to not have to see his death.
Yeah, I totally agree that they handled that in a way that I liked as well, that just kind of showing him progressing towards zombifying and not actually, you know, showing him
not actually getting,
like
I kept
graphically showing his head explode or something like that.
Yeah, you know, we have enough of that. We've seen that a lot. It's nice to see a peaceful character not have to endure that, at least in front of our eyes. So the whole time I was watching the episode, because I don't know what this show's going to do, I was like, please don't show it, please don't show it, please don't show it. And then they show Morgan leave and walk by his grave. That was the perfect way to do it. And I was very relieved, because you never know with the Walking Dead.
Yeah. So this episode was an hour and a half long. Do you think they pleaded with the network for extra time because they've sort of been sitting on Morgan's story for so long? I mean, they must have known all along that they were going to bring him back at some point. And it's been, you know, 6 seasons now, and they've known that they wanted to. They've known that they wanted to tell Morgan's story where he's been this whole time. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's kind of why they made this a longer episode?
Yeah, I think I don't know, maybe they initially planned it that way, maybe they didn't. I think maybe they saw how good the performances they were getting were, and they decided to get some extra time for it. I think they also maybe learned from the Governor episodes a couple of years ago, which were so bad and too heavy of a distraction, 2 whole episodes devoted to someone else that is not part of our group. And maybe they decided, since it's a flashback episode, let's cram it all into one, just supersize it, and that way we won't make people have to wait so long to find out what happens to our people. Because I don't know about you, but those Governor episodes are my least favorite episodes that this show has ever done.
Wow. I mean, I honestly hardly remember the Governor season, but I mean, that could be for a number of reasons, but yeah, maybe it's because it sucked. I don't know.
No, it's because they were bad. That's why.
Okay. So yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about was the pointless acts thing. That's one of the things he's writing on the trees, and one of the things that Eastman and Morgan kind of discuss. And they talk about how basically, the way Morgan feels about it and what he's writing it for is he's saying saving people is pointless. Like, he has saved people in his journeys, and he says they all turn. So that's what he's referring to as pointless acts. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I think the turnaround in this episode is, you know, Eastman once again as this peaceful man, this Buddha character. He turns Morgan into realizing that isn't killing people pointless as well then? Isn't killing people a pointless act? If saving them is pointless, maybe killing them is pointless too. I don't know. What do you think of that?
So killing them is pointless, but saving them is pointless. So what are you supposed to do?
Let it be?
But what if you have to save yourself by killing someone?
I feel like that's where it gets hairy, and that's kind of the dilemma to come. Uh-huh. You know, just the way the episode ends too, with the wolf that he's talking to. Yeah. You know, obviously, I'm like 90% sure that's going to come back to bite him in the ass, right? Yeah, it doesn't look good, but I think that. Oh, I had a thought. Where'd it go? It's there. It's there. I gotta grab onto it before it slips away. I know it's good. Okay, it's coming back. Okay. So Eastman has this peaceful way of life that he chooses. And so do you think Eastman is saying that killing people is pointless, but it gets hairy when it comes to protecting yourself, right? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, sort of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas the Alexandria people, Rick and those guys, they could have just let it be and just protected themselves when maybe those quarry walkers got out maybe and started coming towards Alexandria. But it almost seems like they're seeking out the killing and the trouble that comes with encountering all these walkers, whereas Eastman just takes them as they come. He kills them, he buries them, he goes back to his farm work, that kind of thing. So do you think there's something there about them? What are they trying to say? Something about, you know, the way of life that our heroes have chosen? Or are they just saying there's multiple ways to survive in this apocalypse?
I'd say that the latter is closer to the truth. There's multiple ways to approach it. And I think what it's really building towards is that, by the end of this season, you're going to see that wolf conflict come to a head. Or like I was saying, that Morgan letting these guys go is going to bite him in the ass. And so I feel like, as usual with Walking Dead, there's no like justice here. There's no like, there's no answer. It's just this is how it is,
So, but he's not letting them go.
Well, he locks him in a house that I can obviously see there's a window with no bars on it. Like he could just break out if he wanted to. Yeah,
but isn't that kind of him doing unto the wolf as Eastman did unto him? I mean, the door was unlocked the whole time.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Because I just realized that now. He locks the door.
He does lock the door.
Do you think that's some kind of connection to that whole thing about?
Yeah, I think as he was leaving, he was thinking about how Eastman never locked the door.
Yeah.
And Morgan considers it, but he still locks the door. So does that say that Morgan's not quite to Eastman levels yet? He's not there yet?
Or maybe he doesn't want to be. Or maybe he realizes Eastman's philosophy isn't going to work out for him.
Well, Eastman was dealing with one flawed and, messed up dude, okay?
Yeah.
The wolf has many allies. Granted, they killed quite a few of them, but this wolf is not working alone. And so if he got out, God knows what kind of havoc he would wreak. Whereas if Morgan got out, yeah, he wanted to kill Eastman, but he was just one guy. So I don't know. I'm sure there's another philosophical discussion there as to why he locked the door. It seems that most of our Walking Dead discussions come down to philosophical debates and discussions. So.
Why else watch it?
Yeah, that's true.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's basically the world is over, but there's still people trying to survive. So obviously philosophical things are going to come up. I thought the wolf at the end was another good actor. I think it was terrifying, like the way he was talking to him. So I don't even remember what he said. I just remember being terrified, and that guy sold it really well. So I don't even know what his name is, but
yeah, he did a good job for sure. One thing Eastman says to Morgan that I thought was interesting, did he say it? No, it was another one of the things that was written on the trees, was you only get one. And then you see that right.
You only get one?
Yeah, and you see that right before Morgan and Eastman have the discussion about you will hold a baby again. That's what Eastman says to Morgan. You will hold a baby again. So I thought, I don't know, you can...
He did it!
Yeah, what's that? Oh, he did. He did hold a baby again.
He held Judith in the first episode, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, he has held a baby again. He does get... But I felt like you only get one. Was that referring to his son? Like he thought he lost his one and only? Or what do you think you only get one refers to? Any ideas on that?
It could mean anything. It could mean anything, but maybe since this is kind of a whole philosophical whole episode, maybe it means get one chance to make the right decision. And if you make the wrong decision, that's the way I look at it. But it could literally mean anything. So.
Yeah, I agree. It could. That makes a lot of sense too. That makes a lot of sense too. So, all right. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap things up here?
Yeah. Who was at the gates?
The gates. Oh, you hear a voice, right?
It sounds a lot like Rick.
It does sound like Rick. It sounds like a man's voice, and it sounds like Rick. The preview, there's a sneak peek at next week's episode, and you hear the voice again at the end of that preview. And it sounds like Rick again in that one. So that's where I'd put my money. What about you?
It also shows, the preview also shows Maggie leaving. So I'm guessing it's Rick. He tells them what happened, or that he couldn't get a hold of Glenn on the radio. Then Maggie goes, we'll find out Gwen's fate eventually.
Well, have you seen the sneak peek for next week's episode?
Just the preview on the wall.
I'm sorry, your internet connection's breaking up. Everything's like 10 seconds behind. Maybe we should just wrap this up.
Okay.
So MVP for the episode?
Eastman.
Okay. I will pick Tabitha. No, I'm just kidding. I'll pick Morgan. Okay.
Okay. There were really only two options.
Yeah.
So
I can't really tell what your reaction is because everything is like 10 seconds delayed. But we'll pick this up next week when we see what happens with the Alexandria people. I got to get going. I'm going to go eat some falafel and tomatoes and cheese.
Excellent.
So, all right, we'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.
Yep. Good night.